Number 27 Auburn preview, plus news and notes from across the country on Good Morning College Football. Hello and welcome to episode 77 of Good Morning College Football. I'm Nicholas Ian Allen of CFB Winning Edge and CampusToCanton.com. It is a Monday morning, getting a little bit of a late start and already fumbling over the name of the team that we will be previewing today on Good Morning College Football, the number 27 team in our 2024 CFB Winning Edge Team Strength Power Rankings. That is the Auburn Tigers. And before we really dig into that preview, of course, as fall camps are opening up across the country, the preview portion of this show, the last couple of episodes has been about 20 minutes in. So that's my best guess as of right now. If you're here only for the Auburn football preview, keep that in mind as we move forward. But what we like to do, especially now that, again, since Boston College hit the practice field on Saturday, I believe, all 134 FBS teams have officially opened fall camp. And we hope to be able to pass along some important news and information as we receive it from those schools who are, hitting the practice field, preparing for the 2024 college football season, which kicks off now officially in 19 days. That week zero small selection of games will be here in fewer than 3 weeks. But if this is your first time with us, we very much appreciate it. Thank you for checking out the Campus to Canton YouTube channel. Hope that you will subscribe there. Hope that you will give this video a like. And if you like what you see, both on this show and the other great content options available through a wide range of hosts and contributors on the Campus to Canton YouTube channel, as well as the Campus to Canton podcast feed. We hope that you may consider a subscription to CampusToCanton.com. You can join for as little as $2.99 per month. Get access to our Discord, where there's always tons of discussion about college football in general, the Campus to Canton version of college fantasy football, and get your college side and your NFL side in the same league, as well as Devi, and there's some discussion of betting and other topics that will again get you prepared for the 2024 college football season. So also at the site, you get access to a wide range of written content, tools, data, rankings. We've got the best ball rankings that are tailored to the Underdog recently released version of the game. So all that gets updated regularly. Try to stay on top of the most important movement as far as ADP and camp news as it comes out, showing how the things that we discuss here on Good Morning College Football, as well as even more that maybe we don't have time to dig into, see how that impacts and the ways that you can use that information as you make decisions for those drafts and other games and ways that you look to engage with the 2024 college football season. So last but not least, at CampusToCanton.com, we do offer the All-22 and C2C Winning Edge tier. The All-22 package gets you everything that Campus to Canton has to offer, including all of our CFB Winning Edge databases and sheets and information that include our 2024 team profiles, our returning production database, both of which have team pages for all 130 FBS teams, as do our 2024 stat projections, which you can use as a little bit of a check, compared to the rankings at the site. Look at a specific history. We use a 3-year window of the program, the head coach, and the offensive and defensive play callers to give our best just sort of outline as to what we might expect each, top quarterback, top 2 running backs, top 2 receivers, tight end will be expected to do based on, just that past recent history as far as, statistically for 2024. And we do CFF scoring, DFS, all that good stuff as well. So we very much would appreciate if you would check us out. And thank you so much for tuning in today. With that in mind, let's discuss a little bit of fall camp news. There have been, it's a very busy season, very busy part of the preseason, I should say. Over the weekend, there were big open practices at places like Minnesota, Nebraska, Kentucky. There are scrimmages at several schools. I know Florida State had a scrimmage over the weekend. And a lot of teams will offer access, especially in those big, open practices like Minnesota had or Nebraska, high profile. But those aren't always, don't always generate the most news. I know there's, fall camp traveling shows going on. Caught one in, from the ACC network last week where they were at Stanford. Saw some things about the one recently at Illinois, where apparently it was the least interesting practice of fall camp so far for the Illini. So, some teams keep things a little closer to the vest in those situations. And sometimes we just don't get a lot of information. But the perhaps biggest thing that caught my eye over the weekend was at Ohio State, where it seems like, according to reports, Will Howard has really seemingly distanced himself in the competition for to be the starting quarterback for the Buckeyes this season. Dan Hope of 11 Warriors had a write-up. I believe this was on Saturday. Said 3 days into August practice, Howard, standing as the leader in Ohio State's quarterback competition, feels stronger than it did when camp opened on Thursday, while true freshman Julian Sayin is pushing Devin Brown, the top expected competitor to Howard entering fall camp. Sayin is pushing Brown for a position behind Howard. Continuing on some of the things that Hope outlined here on 11 Warriors, said Will Howard kept momentum on his side in the third practice of preseason camp. Following up an underwhelming first day, he had a very impressive second day and looked sharp again in the third practice on Saturday, showing why he's the front runner to be the Buckeyes starting quarterback despite a shaky spring. Reading here from the piece, talking about Howard, said, taking the majority of reps behind the first team offensive line during 11-on-11 work. Howard also showcased his running ability with an explosive sprint up the left sideline that might have been an 80-yard touchdown. This occurred against the first team defense, which, as we've discussed previously, might be one of the most talented collection of players defensively in recent memory, certainly the way that we calculated at CFB Winning Edge in our roster strength ratings. Said if the play hadn't been whistled dead to protect the quarterback. Continuing on, said Sayin was the most effective quarterback during a red zone passing drill early in practice and had what might have been the most impressive throw of the day during 11-on-11. Was just a pass interference call, apparently, but it was a lofted, perfect deep ball over the outside shoulder of Jeremiah Smith, drawing a pass interference on Denzel Burke as Smith just narrowly missed hauling in a one-handed catch anyway. Continuing on, the true freshman led multiple drives behind the first-team offensive line during team drills, the first we've seen in preseason camp that featured a full first-team offense on the field simultaneously, suggesting that Sayin is in the mix to be Ohio State's number 2 quarterback if not Howard's top competition for the starting job. There was some reporting earlier in the week that Howard and Sayin were getting reps in one grouping in one particular area of practice, while Brown and the other younger quarterbacks were practicing with the different unit on in another section of the practice area. So this follows along with that. It seemingly has been Howard and then Sayin. And then again, final note here from Hope said Brown had what our contingent of 11 Warriors reported agreed was his worst day of preseason camp so far on Saturday, and he ran primarily with the second team offense in drills. From Sunday's practice, Spencer Holbrook of Letterman Row says that Ohio State freshman quarterback Julian Sayin was the only quarterback not named Will Howard to take a first-team rep during 11-on-11 team drills Sunday. Unfortunately for Sayin, that one rep was a pick six. But continuing on here, Holbrook says Howard didn't have his best day of camp. That was Saturday. But he was still in command of the offense and had the best day of any quarterback out there on Sunday. Devin Brown took a majority of second-team reps with the offense. And following up, gives a little more detail on other positions. Holbrook said, if it hasn't hit its cap already, go ahead and buy Carnell Tate stock. He catches every ball thrown his way and was one of the stars of Sunday's practice. Holbrook also mentioned that freshman running back James Peoples keeps flashing, as he says, when he earns carries as a second or third string tailback. He has a rare burst and really quick feet, and he stood out on Sunday. And then a little bit of potentially something to monitor. JT Tuilamoau, who has All-American first-round draft pick type potential, was down on the grass after a full team rep, and he stayed down for a minute or two, reading from Holbrook's report. Following that, he did not return to practice, but he appears to be okay. He kept his helmet. He wasn't limping or showing any sign of pain. He could have been a stinger or a wind knocked out situation. So that's something, honestly, that I've seen a little bit this fall so far. There are quite a few reports, and understandably across a wide range of teams, where maybe it's a star player, maybe it's a projected starter, says oh, so and so went down, didn't return, not expected to be serious. It's difficult to really gauge how much to react to those types of reports, because sometimes it truly is just, all right, give him the rest of the day off, he'll be back the next day, he'll be fully healthy, put some ice on it, tape it up, whatever. But there are, and again, this has to do with the level of access that some teams get compared to others, or offer, or there's certain restrictions put in place about how much detail can be reported about injuries. Sometimes that, not expected to be serious, and then that player misses a significant chunk of time. So I try not to overreact to any of these pieces. Try to pass along the ones where it seems a little more clear, though, as we'll discuss in just a minute, not all of those even seem to be straightforward. But there is just keep in mind that the guys are getting banged up, and we don't always know the extent. We try to track most of the important ones, or where we truly can read into, okay, this maybe be something that's going to impact this player's availability in week one or moving forward. Try to keep track of those in our team profiles at CFB Winning Edge. But I don't know, a guy being down for a couple of minutes, that certainly catches my eye, especially when he's someone as good as Tuilamoau is. At Cal, Jackson Moore of Bear Territory had some notes from over the weekend that included Ohio State transfer Keon Gray's wide receiver has emerged as an early star of fall camp and a potential starter, though Moore did not have Gray's listed among the top three wideouts in his depth chart update over the weekend. Moore also noted that tight end transfer Corey Dyches from Maryland has been impressive, and it looks like the receiving core as a whole could be a strength of that offense, which would be great, certainly with running back Jaden Ott, one of the best in the ACC, and potentially in a fairly short list in the country. Having a little more balance, offensively, if that wide receiver core truly does emerge as a strength, could be good for Cal in its first season in its new conference. But Moore outlined that neither of the quarterbacks were particularly great in his observation over the weekend. Fernando Mendoza seemingly has a slight lead in the competition with Chandler Rogers, the transfer from North Texas. But as Moore said, Mendoza has had some days where the door could be open for Rogers to make a statement and move ahead, but I personally haven't seen him take advantage of those days yet. In the way that Moore put it here, Mendoza continues to fend off the new addition by a small margin. Hopefully someone goes on a tear during camp, but either way, Cal is better off this year than last, seemingly at the quarterback position. At Wisconsin, Evan Flood of Badger 247 was on hand for Saturday's practice number 5, which included the first scrimmage of fall camp. Wanted to pass along that Flood and some other reporters that have been reading throughout fall camp have mentioned C.J. Williams' name quite a bit. I know there's been plenty of discussion about Will Pauling being the slot expected to be the slot receiver, I should say, for the Badgers, and Phil Longo's track record of really featuring that position and paid off last season, especially towards the end of the year. But C.J. Williams is a name that's popping up a lot as somebody who's been impressive, and Flood mentioned specifically some blocking drills and reps that were impressive, which Williams in the past, as I understand, not really known much for his blocking ability, but sounds like he's coming a long way there, and also making some plays early on in fall camp for the Badgers. Flood noted that senior running back Ches Belusi was held out of contract drills. Pauling also did not participate in the scrimmage on Saturday. And that running back Tyree Walker, who seemingly is expected to be the number 2 running back behind Belusi, was the star of the show during the scrimmage. The Oklahoma transfer, reading here from Flood, said, ripped off a number of big runs, most of which ended with a defender or 2 on the ground when they dared get in his way. Walker almost single-handedly led a touchdown drive, blowing through contact on a 4th and 3. On the next play, he brushed off 2 tackles en route to the end zone. So most, even though there have been reports from Flood and others saying, oh, Malusi's limited or, not going through contact drills, still looks like a 1,000-yard rusher, looks like the number 1, expected to be the number 1 running back. But if, Tyree Walker continues to impress, and this wasn't the first time I saw mention of him having a great practice session, perhaps it'll be a little bit more of a, shared workload there with Malusi and Walker. Some injury news at Florida. Nick De La Torre posted over, I think it was maybe Friday night, that running back Montel Johnson suffered a knee injury and had routine arthroscopic surgery to clean it up. And the important part to me said he's week to week, but it's not believed that he will miss an extended period of time. So that's a little bit difficult to decipher. But when I hear week to week, that makes me think, okay, the chance of him not being available in week 1, probably pretty high. That's my own interpretation. We'll certainly look for more news from De La Torre and other folks on the Florida beat. But as of right now, maybe the most significant injury bit of news that we've had in the early bit of fall camp is that Montel Johnson did have a surgery not long ago to clean up some issues with a knee injury, and is week to week. Another running back that we discussed in our most recent show on Friday, a little bit of an update and kind of a cloudy situation at BYU. Mitch Harper of KSL was among the reporters on hand to follow up a story from the Deseret News earlier in the week, where LJ Martin was reportedly expected to miss few 3 or 4 weeks, I believe it was, this season early on due to injury. So reading here from Harper's piece said the rising sophomore has not been seen during team portions of practice and media observation windows on Wednesday and Friday's practice. There were reports this week that Martin would miss game action to open the season. On Friday, Martin addressed the media in a scrum of reporters. Quote, "I'm participating in everything. I've been out here with the guys, just out here competing. So it's been real fun just being out here for the first couple of days of camp." Harper says, when asked about his health level at the moment, Martin replied, quote, "I'll be good. I'm good right now. I'll be good." Continuing here from Harper said to close up his press availability, Martin was asked if the expectation is that he will play in week 1 against Southern Illinois in 4 weeks. Martin said, quote, "Yeah." So unclear. I say unclear because, the reporting earlier suggested might miss upwards of a month of the season. Seemingly, if a player is going to say, "Yeah, I'm ready to go. I'm good. I'm ready to go. I'm practicing," that seems fairly clear, I suppose. But the contradiction between the two, for me, I've got some questions. It wouldn't shock me one way or the other if we see Martin immediately in week 1, or if he misses some time. This wouldn't be the first case of somebody saying they're healthy and then not being able to take the field in week 1. So we'll continue to keep our eyes on that as well. At Louisville, a little more detail on the skill positions, following up a piece from Keith Wynn of Card Chronicle, who put it pretty well at the running back position. Said the running back job appears to be Maurice Turner's to lose. He is getting first reps and he hasn't wasted the opportunity. This was, I believe, a report on Friday, so haven't seen much follow-up over the weekend. But as Wynn put it, Ja'Cory Brooks and Chris Bell will make up a nice combination as outside receivers. Bell looks like he's ready to take the next step and be a number 1 receiver. That, compare that to the note that we discussed on Friday, where Brooks was reportedly quarterback Tyler Shuck's favorite target of that opening practice. So a little bit of conflicting information there. Continuing here from Wynn, he said, in the slot, Colin Lacey has looked solid, but not as explosive as I had hoped he would be. I think he would have a strong season, but I would like to see him make more big plays in practice before I set expectations for him to have a Rondell Moore type impact in Brom's offense. Rondell Moore, absolute superstar for Jeff Brom at Purdue, especially early on, his first year on campus. Lacey, the transfer from South Alabama, there were some comparisons to him when the news of his transfer to Louisville became official. But that's cooled a little bit, especially in recent weeks with Bell getting a lot of buzz and then that report from Brooks. So again, as always, we'll keep an eye and see if we get any new information. At Utah State, a couple of wide receivers have transferred. The biggest name of note, Micah Davis, who has reportedly landed at Ole Miss. Brad Logan, reporter on the ground there, has confirmed some other reporting that Davis was headed potentially to Oxford. I saw something that he had considered Illinois as well, I believe. The portal is still open at Utah State, as well as Fresno State, with the late coaching changes at both of those Mountain West institutions. Saw a little bit of buzz that USC was maybe still hoping to get an offensive lineman after it had missed after the spring window closed. So maybe keep an eye on that for Utah State or Fresno State as we move forward, but nothing officially reported out there that I've seen. And most of the real updates that we're making on our team profiles, and we do, probably 90% of the stuff I'm reading and reacting to and making adjustments in our team profiles doesn't make it to this news section. A lot of it is offensive line related. This morning I change the projected starter at right tackle for Charlotte, for example. But also again, try not to overreact to particular, pecking order in one drill in a 10 or 15 minute viewing period. And also those little bits of injury news. It's hard to know which of those are really going to be impactful and which really aren't. At SMU, there are a couple of offensive linemen who have been banged up. Leah Asamaka Palaus, and my apologies for mispronunciation there, of the Dallas Morning News, reported that head coach Rhett Lashley, announced a couple of offensive linemen were banged up, missed some time, including transfer Andrew Chambly, who has a knee injury. Lashley reportedly said that Chambly's injury is not serious, but running back Kamar Wheaton also suffered a knee injury, and it sounds like they're not quite writing off he doesn't have the not expected to be serious designation. So keep an eye on that, the former 5-star Alabama transfer. And what is a deep SMU running back situation, but Wheaton perhaps not going to be a major piece, if that is a significant bit of injury news there. All right, so let's get ready here to turn our attention to the Auburn Tigers, who have a posted win total of 7.5 for the regular season here, according to DraftKings. And Auburn is a team where I was a little bit surprised. I thought we were going to be on the high end in our projections, in our rankings, having Auburn right on the outside of the top 25, looking in at number 27. Auburn is the 11th team in our SEC power rankings. So even though they're a fringe top 25 team, it's not like our overall expectations are super high for the Tigers, coming off a 6-7 season with 3-5 as their SEC record. But year 2 for Hugh Freeze, I don't have a way to quantify it, but I've said before, often kind of expect a year 2 bump in most situations. Freeze has a pretty good track record in year 2 in his previous stops, and definitely expecting the offense to take a step forward, even though, there were some expectations or certainly some discussion that perhaps Freeze would go after a high-profile quarterback transfer, bring in some competition, or perhaps replace returning starter Payton Thorne. But instead, seemingly Freeze and his coaching staff look to solidify the wide receiver group around Thorne, bringing in a couple of potential starters via the transfer portal, and Keandre Lambert-Smith from Penn State, Robert Lewis from Georgia State, and the recruiting trail has really paid off for Auburn. Cam Coleman, the true freshman, already taking reps with the first team offense, expected to have a major impact in his first year on the Plains. Perry Thompson, true freshman as well. The addition of Sam Jackson is pretty intriguing. We talked about the Cal quarterback competition earlier. Jackson was playing quarterback at Cal last year, expected to play wide receiver, where he reconnects with Thorne. They have a history dating back to high school, and Jackson had a lot of success as a wide receiver there before transitioning to quarterback. So pretty interesting setup on the offensive side of the ball, which was a little bit of a disappointment last year, as we will discuss. But Auburn is a team that, like I said, the expectations elsewhere vary a bit. I thought we were going to be on the high side, but in fact, Beta Rank is the highest that I've seen among computer analytics projections, number 14 in the country in the 2024 projections there. ESPN's Football Power Index has Auburn at number 19. On the more, opinion, media personality side of the equation, in his post-spring power rankings. Andy Staples on 3 had Auburn 20th. Back on the computer side of things, Kelly Ford and the K Ford ratings have Auburn 23rd. And SP Plus, ESPN and Bill Connolly's projections system has Auburn 31st. So among that group, we are actually on a little bit of the low end. Many of the other more media national outlets, Athlon Sports, the Sporting News, the most recent 247 Sports top 25 that was just posted, don't have Auburn in the top 25. So we're maybe on par or a little higher on the Tigers than that group. But one of the interesting things, these projection models like Beta Rank, like ours, don't offer a lot of detail as to why necessarily. That's why I try to go in and pull up the team profile, pull up the returning production, and show you where these numbers are coming from as best I can. But most of them, unless there's a written piece, Bill Connolly often does, to supplement his rankings, we maybe don't get a ton of detail on each team. So I did think it was interesting why Staples, who's seemingly, among the national media personalities that we've compared our rankings to throughout this entire preview series, wanted to dig into why he maybe was higher on Auburn than just about everybody else in the industry from his standpoint. Says, and reading here from that rankings piece that Staples put out earlier in the summer, the biggest mistake Hugh Freeze made in year one was abdicating play calling duties. And then in parentheses, what is it about Auburn that makes elite play callers think they shouldn't call plays? Continuing on, he said, that error has been corrected, and now a coach whose play calling once scared Nick Saban into trying to change the rules will be fully unleashed with new communication technology that allows him to say, quote, throw it to Cam Coleman on the dagger directly into his QB's ear from the sideline. Finishing up, Staples says, if Auburn can avoid another New Mexico State situation this season, expect a significant jump. The loss to New Mexico State, of course, and Hugh Freeze has had back-to-back losses against New Mexico State. Pretty disappointing there for his last couple of years, first at Liberty and last season at Auburn. But fortunately, I guess, the Aggies not on the schedule this season. New Mexico, the Lobos, are in week 3, which looks like a very manageable, non-conference slate for the Tigers, as we'll get to here in just a minute. But last bit here, David Hale of ESPN.com wrote a piece that put all 134 FBS quarterback situations into tiers. Been very helpful for us for this preview series. He put a note or usually a stat for each starting quarterback or projected starting quarterback that kind of helps explain why you put a QB in a particular tier. And I think Payton Thorne in this Auburn quarterback room is the lowest in Hale's tiers that we've discussed in these previews, coming in at tier 13. Thorne is alongside the quarterback situation at places like Illinois, Iowa, and Purdue. Also Houston, kind of interesting since Donovan Smith's been, a pretty buzzy name in the very, very early 2025 NFL draft conversation. But Hale outlines here that Thorne, against teams that finished with a winning record in 2024, in those 6 starts, he had a 42.1 total quarterback rating, completed 54.3% of his passes for 4 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, and averaged just 5.05 yards per pass attempt, which is horrible, basically. Against teams with a losing record, another 6 starts, his QBR was 73, completed 67.6% of his passes, 12 touchdowns, 5 picks, and averaged 8.12 yards per pass attempt. Still some room for improvement there, but more than 3 yards better than the best teams that Auburn played. And in Hugh Freeze's 11-year career as a head coach, according to Hale, last year marked the lowest total of passing yards, passing touchdowns yards per dropback, and completions of 20 yards or more by his quarterback. So those numbers probably explain a little bit why there was a lot of chatter, let's say, early on that Payton Thorne maybe not the best long-term option for Auburn, maybe bringing in another transfer to compete at the very least, or could there be a situation where a true freshman, Walker White, gets an opportunity to truly compete for the job? As of right now, sounds like Thorne is the very highly likely to be the starter in Week 1 against Alabama A&M. But we'll just see if he continues to play poorly against the better teams on the schedule. Maybe he won't be able to hold on to that job. I personally am fairly optimistic. I think that Thorne is going to have a bit of a bounce back here, but of course we will see. So let's dig into some of the details here. I will share my screen, bringing up the 2024 CFB Winning Edge team profiles. I'll try to zoom in a little bit, give you a better look here. Up in the top left corner, you see our FBS power ranking. Those are our team strength power rankings, or connected to our team strength power ratings, which we use to project point spreads for every matchup. Those ratings are built using our roster strength ratings, where we take the recruiting ratings coming out of high school and make some adjustments based on experience and career production to give us an individual player rating. We call it a video game rating, very similar, not exactly the same, but similar to what you might see in the EA Sports College Football 25 video game. The only difference, or not the only difference, but one of the differences is several years ago, after making some adjustments along the way, we started this in 2018. We decided we're going to break through that 99 threshold. We now have taken off the cap, so players can have a rating into the 100s. We did that to sort of differentiate the best of the best from the group, and our ratings are a little higher than what you'll see in the video game. We made these when the video game was dead, so we've sort of fine-tuned it without using that as our real rubric for a little while, but. The other big piece of it, those roster strength ratings, use those individual player ratings. We build those up into position ratings and unit ratings, and then those overall roster strength ratings. We also have a team performance rating, which is the complete opposite, has nothing to do with talent, only looks at statistics and advanced stats. So how well a team performs on the field. The numbers that go into those use numbers against FBS opponents only, in the regular season only, so no bowl game stats. And then also, when possible, we filter for garbage time. And then our head coach ratings are part of the piece, or are a piece of the puzzle as well. And those head coach ratings are specifically team performance ratings, but tied to each head coach. So if there is a coaching change, that's where you'll see a little bit of a difference there. But for the most part, especially if a coach has been somewhere for 3 years or more, the head coach rating and the team performance weight in our overall team ratings not going to be too much different. But okay, so looking at last season, we go to the middle of our team profile, scroll all the way down to the bottom portion of the schedule where it has our 2023 results, and comparing the wins and losses to those post-game win expectancy numbers from collegefootballdata.com. So if you were to play that game 100 times, 1,000 times, however many, that's how many or what percentage of the time you would expect Auburn to have won. Most everything went according to plan. There weren't really any situations where Auburn just completely outplayed its opponent, statistically speaking, and lost, or was incredibly unlucky. You could say that Alabama loss might fall into that category, the fourth and whatever that Alabama was able to break the hearts of Auburn in the Iron Bowl. But still, statistically speaking, that box score showed that Auburn should have only won that game 15% of the time. So that was, like it or not, according to the advanced box score, a deserved Alabama victory. But starting off the season, the Tigers performed quite well, even though that Cal game was very close. The Tigers would have won it 99% of the time, according to the box score. Once they got into SEC play, a very, very difficult start to that portion of the schedule, a very difficult portion of the schedule, but 4 consecutive losses, the closest of which against Ole Miss, still fewer than or a lower than 20% chance of winning that game, according to the numbers. A little bit of a streaky team, Auburn, last season, or I guess very much so. 3 more victories in a row, took care of business against teams that you would expect Auburn to beat: Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and Arkansas. But then right when it looked like things were, turning the corner, that inexplicable loss in pretty dominant fashion. New Mexico State really controlled that game. Comes ahead of that Iron Bowl heartbreaker, and then losing to Maryland in the bowl game sent Auburn to a final record of 6-7. According to the second order wins, where we give a full win credit for that UMass game and that Samford game, Mississippi State and Arkansas, where Auburn was 100% in the post-game numbers, but then giving 0.99 against Cal, 0.8 against Georgia, 0.18 against Ole Miss. This Auburn team, maybe very, very close to being a 7-win team, 6.45 in the second order wins number, again, according to college football data and those post-game win expectancy numbers. Statistically, digging into some of our favorites, the issue for Auburn, or at least the area with the most to improve, was on the offensive side of the ball. In the 60s, 70s, and a little bit worse in some of our favorite stats: 68th in scoring offense. Again, FBS opponents only, regular season only. 69th in yards per play, 69th in points per drive. That according to Brian Fremeau of bcftoys.com. That number is filtered for garbage time. 99th in yards per pass attempt, going back to that note from David Hale, especially against teams with a winning record, and Payton Thorne. Not enough explosive plays through the air. 65th in success rate, 78th in the EPA per play equivalent we use from collegefootballdata.com. They call it PPA. On the defensive side of the ball, in most areas, not all, but a bit of a step forward. Scoring defense, top 40 nationally. Yards per play against, 73rd, a little bit disappointing, but points per drive, much better, 39th. Yards per pass attempt, again, too many explosive plays on defense, 7.59 there, was 84th nationally. Success rate against, 43rd, so Auburn did a little bit better job in that more efficiency related number. And then EPA per play, top 50 nationally, just barely. So on net, a lot of mid 50s, 70s, that yards per pass attempt, the biggest area of concern, 92nd in net yards per pass attempt, being 1.12 yards below zero. Also negative in net yards per play, and just barely in the positive in points per drive. So Auburn, definitely some area of improvement, statistically speaking, and I think that we will see it this upcoming season. All right, making the move here to our CFB Winning Edge returning production database. Who's coming back, who's not from that 6-7 season? The maybe most important thing, just in the overall number, Auburn ranks 25th, top 25 nationally in our adjusted returning production numbers. These are adjusted for incoming transfers. So 25th overall when we take into account the players coming in, 18th on the offensive side of the ball, 66th defensively. In terms of raw returning production, so just who's coming back, who's not from last year's roster, Auburn would have ranked 38th, still top 20 on offense, 81st defensively. But the passing production gets thrown off just a little bit because Sam Jackson played quarterback last year, so his addition offsets the passing and then some, left when Robbie Ashford transferred to South Carolina. But Payton Thorne coming back, lackluster numbers, one way to put it, 1,755 yards passing, just 6.6 yards per pass attempt, 16 touchdowns, 10 picks. Definitely expect a bit of an improvement there. Certainly for Auburn's case, hope that he will improve. The running situation is a bit better. Jarquez Hunter back and hopefully available for the full season, fully healthy. Came up a little shy of 1,000 yards, 909 yards, and 7 touchdowns. 5.7 yards per attempt is quite impressive. Damari Alston is the top returning running back, back up to Hunter, over 300 yards and 2 touchdowns. Tragic situation with Brian Petit, so he will not factor in this season. Robbie Ashford offered a real boost at the quarterback position off the bench primarily as well. 5 touchdowns there, but Payton Thorne can run it a little bit, over 500 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, as much as he maybe struggled as a passer, his running ability is an asset, I'd say, for Auburn. At receiver, losing Javaris Johnson and Jay Fair to the transfer portal, maybe not the biggest hit, because Robert Lewis and Keandre Lambert-Smith coming in. Lewis put up great numbers at Georgia State, over 100 targets, 70 catches, 881 yards, and 7 touchdowns. Sounds like he's off to a good start this spring as well. Lambert-Smith, wasn't the smoothest exit from Penn State, but somebody who's played a lot of football at a high level. 53 catches, 673 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Sounds like he, by most expectations, probably going to be your top target for Auburn this year. But maybe it's going to be Cam Coleman as well, he'll certainly, I think, be in the mix, the true freshman, I should say. At tight end, Rivaldo Fairweather, an all-SEC performer, 38 catches, 394 yards, and 6 touchdowns, so a lot of good production from him as well. The offensive line, a little bit of experience loss with 2 full-time starters, Gunnar Britton and Cam Stutz, moving on. Get some experience coming in via the transfer portal, Roman Chambers and Percy Lewis. Also, Connor Liu got about a half season's worth of starting experience last year with Avery Jones, who is out of eligibility at the center position. On defense, top 2 tacklers from last season return, and Eugene Asante and Jalen McLeod. Also get the addition of Dorian Mousy. So that linebacker core, a lot of experience, a lot of tackle production coming back. Kieran Crawford, the transfer from Arkansas State, kind of a personal favorite of mine. He had nearly 40 pressures in the Sun Belt last season. Excited to see what he can do in the SEC. Getting Keontae Scott back at corner is, of course, key. But that sort of, second tier of tackle production, a lot of guys moving on. Larry Nixon III, Marcus Harris, Jalen Simpson, DJ James, Zion Puckett. So that secondary behind Scott, going to have to replace a lot of snaps, a lot of production. Losing Donovan Kaufman via the transfer portal was also an impactful move. So Auburn, had more to replace on defense, certainly, than offense. But that was the strength of this team last season. And me personally, I don't see a significant drop-off. Back to our team profiles. And you saw it earlier, the projected starting offense with Thorne and Hunter and Fairweather all back as returning starters. Brand new wide receiver core. We expect Lambert-Smith, Lewis, and Coleman to be the starters. We will keep our ear to the ground to see how that rotation is working itself out in fall camp to determine, if changes need to be made there. But Sam Jackson, Camden Brown, Perry Thompson could likely factor in as well. On the offensive line, we've got Lewis penciled in as a starter at left tackle. Chambers right now not expected to start, with Lou and Jaden Muskrat returning from not starter level snaps, but both on the field for more than a quarter. In Muskrat's case, Lou was there for 52.5% of snaps last season at center. So those 2 expected most likely to emerge as starters. Defensively, a lot of starters, quote unquote, returning starters, which we use just 51% of starts from last season as the benchmark there. So a lot in the front seven or front six in Auburn's case, returning with McLeod, Jason Jones, Kildrick Falk, Eugene Asante. In the secondary, just one full-time starter in Scott coming back. But again, multiple players that got significant experience. Kayan Lee, 40% of snaps last season. Caleb Wooden, about a quarter of snaps. Jaron Thompson, the transfer coming in from Texas, he was a starter, 31 starts in his career for the Longhorns. We've got Crawford right now as the number 2 buck, that sort of hybrid edge defender. But wouldn't be surprised if he plays roughly half of the team snaps, maybe even more, depending on how things shake out. The addition of Trill Carter coming in, who was at Minnesota early in his career, 30-game starter there, Texas last season, but expected to get back into the mix as a starter, or at least that's my expectation at Auburn. The additions of Philip Bliddy and Dorian Mousy and Antonio Kite as well. The odd transfer from Alabama, expected to step in and play some significant snaps. All right, getting to the schedule. Again, that projected or posted win total, regular season win total from DraftKings as of this morning was 7.5 for Auburn. We come in just a little bit below that at 7.12. That is our official projection from CFB Winning Edge. We've been doing those for every FBS team dating back to the 2021 season. We've been correct 60.4 or 60.5% of the time doing that across all FBS teams. So pretty good track record. But we are kind of testing a new version of that win total projection. It's mostly geared towards the extremes because we are almost always going to be under a team that's projected for 11, 10.5, 10 wins. We're pretty much always going to be over a team projected for, or posted at 2.5, 3.5 wins. So Auburn doesn't get a major adjustment because we give a 10% bonus for a team if it's favored in a matchup, and a 10% penalty if it's projected as an underdog. Auburn is at 6-6 in those situations the way we project it right now, so that win total wouldn't change. But the important thing I think to note is the strength of schedule ranking for Auburn is 48th, which is very much on the low end for an SEC team. The non-conference schedule sets up really quite well with Alabama A&M, Cal, New Mexico, and ULM late in the season. All home games. So that, I think, is key. Getting Arkansas in the SEC opener also at home is a nice setup. Oklahoma having to travel to Jordan-Hare Stadium is important there as well. Sorry, just checking, making sure the Cal game was at home this year, being away last season. The middle of the season, it once again gets a bit more difficult. I mean, Oklahoma is not a slam dunk. We have the Sooners favored in that game, though it is a winnable one for the Tigers. We are higher on Oklahoma than most. At Georgia, going to be a significant underdog there. Do get a week off, extra week to prepare, but a second straight road game at Missouri, who has higher expectations in Columbia than we've seen in quite a long time, and then a third straight road game, including back-to-back weeks at Kentucky. To me, that's a pretty tricky spot. And we do have the Wildcats favored. Kentucky, again, a team that we're a little bit higher on, I think, than most, should get back in the win column if things don't go well in that section. And Auburn absolutely could, I think, beat Oklahoma, Missouri, or Kentucky. Georgia's going to be tough. Not saying that's an automatic loss by any stretch, but maybe Auburn might have an opportunity. My expectation would be 2-2 in that 4-game stretch, but that would be an overachievement compared to how we have those projected, just based on Auburn being an underdog in all of those. Again, back on the favored against Vanderbilt, then an extra week off. which maybe not the most ideal off week. Don't need maybe that extra week to prepare for ULM, but Texas A&M, that game is basically a toss-up. Being on the Plains is I think, of course, very significant. And then at Alabama, Auburn always plays the Tide tough, and certainly, this is a different Alabama program now than we have seen recently. So do have the Crimson Tide favored by a significant margin, almost double digits. But I wouldn't be shocked if that's once again a very, very competitive game. So this Auburn team, the expectations, the outcomes, there's a range, kind of like how the other projection models, some were a good bit higher, some a little bit lower. The consensus, or the general feeling, I think, for the national media is that this is a team that has a lot of potential, but probably not ready to break through as a top 25. Not going to break into the top 25 in the polls unless there's a big year two bump, especially on offense under Hugh Freeze, which I do think is possible. Again, going back to Hale's point, Freeze now the play caller. Second year for Payton Thorne, I think he's going to take a step forward there. The revamped wide receiver room should be a step in the right direction. So maybe that puts a lot more of these toss-ups into the winnable category, or games where you legitimately could see Auburn knocking off an Oklahoma or a Missouri, taking care of business at Kentucky. By the time that game kicks off, maybe Auburn's favored. Our projections do change based on those adjustments for production in the season. If Thorne gets off to, throws for 1,000 yards in those first 3 games, he's going to be a higher rated player by time Auburn's traveling to Kentucky. So, maybe that number will shift a bit. But getting to a bowl game seems like the obvious expectation. Coming up short of that would be a major disappointment. Going 4-0 in non-conference play is going to go a big way towards that, taking care of business against teams like Vanderbilt and even Arkansas, where Auburn should have a talent advantage. And speaking of that, Auburn in our talent edge projections, which only look at those roster strength numbers to suggest how a matchup should go, a lot more fall on the Auburn side of things. We've got Auburn favored in the first 4 and then a stretch of 5 games. So 9 of 12 regular season matchups, we give Auburn the talent edge. So if we only look at talent with a small adjustment for home field advantage, Auburn's in good shape there. And on the other side of things, our PRISM model, our projected scoring margin, which is only based on those advanced stats. So it's the opposite of the talent edge. Auburn in a little bit better situation there for, projected as a favorite once again in the first 4, also favored against Kentucky, and, the rest goes according to plan, but projected in 7 there. So 7-5 seems to be the most likely outcome, again, based on our win total projection. But it would not shock me at all if Auburn is able to get that 8th win. And maybe there's even a little bit higher of a ceiling if they're able to pick up a couple of games that we currently have them projected as underdogs. Texas A&M and Kentucky, probably the most likely. Maybe Oklahoma as well, since they're transitioning there to the SEC. So that is going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for joining us. We will be back on Wednesday with another preview of our number 28 team in our preseason team strength power rankings. As of right now, that's Oklahoma State. So if there's not any significant news that bumps somebody ahead of the Pokes or puts them behind maybe Iowa, they're next on the list, we should be spending probably at least half of our show discussing Oklahoma State next week. We will, of course, be on the lookout for important fall camp news as more comes available. The previews might get a little bit shorter, but we'll try to still give the rest of the teams this month as we head towards week 0. Try to stay on top and give them their time as well. But if you haven't already, please, we very much would appreciate you giving this video a like, and also if you would subscribe to the Campus Canton YouTube channel. And also, we would love if you might consider becoming a member at campusdecanton.com. You can join for as little as $2.99 per month, or take advantage of everything we've got to offer, including these team profiles that you see here, our return production database, and our CFB Winning Edge team statistical projections. All of those are available to C2C Winning Edge and all 22 tier members. So with that, we will say goodbye until Wednesday. Thanks so much for joining us. And until then, take care.